recently made a set of videos entitled Advanced Arrow Making, which was an expansion of my original arrow making videos, how arrow making made easy. Now I noticed when I was looking through them that I've done my usual trick of erring on the side of brevity to keep the arrows as short as possible, because I think sometimes it can be a pain in the ass watching dull old farts like me rabbit on for hours and hours and hours, which I can do quite easily. See, there I go again. So I missed out some quite vital information. It's not information that would stop you making arrows, it's information that will make the building of really accurate arrows that much simpler. So I'm going to rectify that issue right now. Right, so the first thing we're going to look at is spine ratings, spine for your arrows. Now when I did the spine, most people when they buy wooden shafts will buy them in a particular spine rating, like say for instance 35 to 40, 40 to 45, 45 to 50, and then build arrows just out of those 12 arrows or whatever. Nothing wrong with that at all, and generally speaking that will give you a good acceptable level of accuracy, especially at closer ranges, 20 to 30 yards. However, if you want to go to longer ranges, there's a few steps that you have to put in. That's what the advanced arrow making videos were about. But there was a few little things which I should have put in, but I didn't. One of them, for instance, the first one we're going to talk about, is when it comes to spining your arrows. Now you should always check the spine of any shaft you have bought, even if it's just suspend your shafts between two fixed points, put a weight on and make sure they bend the same distance each time. Because it's actually happened to me where I bought a dozen shafts and an odd one has made its way into the bunch I've bought. I mean, when it happened to me, I bought some 50-55s and there was a 25 shaft. And it's nobody's fault, it's nobody's problem, it's one of those things that happens. It might happen in manufacturing, it might happen during transportation. Say for instance a shaft falls out of a package and just gets shoved back in any old way. Or it could happen in the shop where somebody picks out a shaft and forgets what it gets distracted and puts it back in the wrong one. It happens. So that's the first thing, you should always check the spine and make sure they're all the same thing. Now you don't need a spine board to do that, but it's easier. And then when you're checking your spine, this comes in with the spine bias. You check your spine on one side. However, a lot of people will leave it at that. You need to turn it over 180 degrees and check it again. And a lot of the time you'll see there is a difference. Now if the deflection is the same both left and right, that's fine. That's a neutral arrow. They're ideal for ease of setup, ease of aiming, that sort of thing. And if you can get a dozen neutrally spined arrows, say they're all for instance say a 42-pound spine, that's fantastic, that's ideal. But it's going to be a rare occurrence unless you do it deliberately. So you measure the spine and say for instance the deflection is 500. That's a 500 spine. Oh, quick one. Modern spine ratings are like say 500, 1000, 1500s. They're just hundredths of an inch. Don't get confused or intimidated by that trying to work it out. A 500 spine is a half-inch deflection. A 1000 spine is a 1-inch deflection. A 400 spine is a 400ths of an inch deflection. A 250 spine is 250 hundredths of an inch, or a quarter of an inch deflection. Half inch being 500, 750 being 3/4. So it's nothing to be scared of. Right, anyway, back to the point. So you measure the spine and it deflects 500, half an inch. You turn the spine over and it deflects 600ths of an inch. Now that means you've got a strong side and a weak side. The 500 is the strong side, the 600 is the weak side. Now why does it make a difference? Because it affects the way the arrow flexes from side to side as it begins its travel through the air. Now when I build my arrows, I always build them, if there is a strong side, with the strong side on the left. Yeah? Because when the arrow goes down range, this is the weak side, this is the 500. The 400 is the strong side. As the arrow bends going down range, now in a neutral arrow, it'll bend an equal amount from the left to the right. From the centre, it'll flex to the left, come back to the centre, then flex to the right. And it will do that equally if it's a 500 and equal 500 on a neutral shaft. However, on this shaft, we've measured it 400 on this side and 500 on this side. So it flexes 500 to the right, and it comes back to centre and flexes 400. So that actually alters the centre line. It actually pulls the arrow to the right, because each time it flexes, it doesn't flex back as far to the left, so it ends up moving slightly to the right. So I set mine up with the strong side on the right hand side, on the left hand side, so that it pulls the arrows to the right, because I'm a right-handed shooter and I want my arrows to be as near to the centre line of my string bow alignment as I can possibly get it. And to do that, if I've got a strong side and a weak side, I need the strong side on the outside of the arrow, on the cock feather side of the arrow. If you're left-handed, do it the opposite way around. If I was to set it up the other way with the strong side on the inside of the arrow, it would actually flex more to the left and get pulled off to the left-hand side. That's why it's important. Now, as long as you set all your arrows up the same, with the strong side to the same side, in my case, I always put the strong side on the outside of the arrow, the cock feather side of the arrow, which is there. They'll always behave in the same way. They'll always favour the left-hand side, the right, as they go down range. Yeah? Which means that when they hit, they're all doing the same sort of thing. If you don't check for spine bias, you could have one arrow which is strong on the left, which will favour the right. You could have one neutral arrow which won't favour one side or other, it'll be fairly neutral. And you could have another one which favours the left, which is strong on the right. Now when that makes a difference is if you don't know about it. So you could set your bow up on one arrow, which is the neutral arrow, because that's the one that seems to shoot the best. And then you've got a situation where you have one arrow hits to the right, one arrow hits to the left, one to the right, one to the left, and another one in the centre. That's not consistent. Now at shorter distances, like say out to 20 yards, it might not make a difference. It might actually be of a benefit. For instance, you're going to avoid Robin Hoods and stacking arrows one on top of the other and damaging arrows that way. However, the deflection might only mean a half-inch difference in point of impact. And if you're shooting indoors at 20 or 30 yards, that might still keep you in the gold. However, outdoors, longer ranges, now bear in mind most bare bow competitions are held at 50 yards, plus at 50 yards, that deflection might mean the difference between of 3, 4, 5 inches. So if you're shooting and if you're wanting accurate arrows, you need to take that into account. And it's just a little extra step, and that's why you do it, because you want every arrow acting the same. So all my arrows favour to the right. So that's why I set my arrows up, favouring left-hand strong side, which means the arrows will favour the right. If you're left-handed, you want to set them up with the strong side being the left-hand side, so the right-hand side, so they'll favour to the left. It just aids in aiming. And if you set them up all the same, you're actually building in consistency. So that's your spine bias. The next thing to consider is actually balance and ballasting. Now the ballasting thing is quite a simple thing. The reason why we do that, I think I explained that in the video, is to adjust the balance of the arrow. Now these ones are fairly neutral and were built that way to be fairly flat shooting and to be a little bit faster off the bow. And they shoot really, really nicely. They're a little bit more affected by the wind outdoors, but I'm prepared to put up with that, especially at the shorter distances I generally shoot. However, if you have an arrow which is positively biased, as in the weight is further back, you're actually putting, so the balance point is further back, you've got more weight in the rear of the arrow, which tends to lift the nose. So if you have a negatively balanced arrow, it will hit a little bit higher. If you, on the other hand, your arrows are balanced with the weight to the front, they'll hit a bit lower, because what you're actually doing is you're effectively adding weight. I mean, these arrows that come from a set are all the same weight, with the same weight of heads and everything, and they've all got a neutral balance. But if I shifted the weight of the balance forward, it effectively increases the weight of that part of the arrow, which means you've got more weight in the front of the arrow, yeah, which actually causes the arrow to drop slightly over any given distance. Now again, at shorter distances, you can use that to your benefit so you don't actually damage your arrows. However, at longer distances, it will drop that much quicker. Now that's fine if all your arrows are balanced the same. Yeah? However, if you have one arrow which is balanced there, one which is balanced there which is neutral, and one which is balanced there which is negative, you're going to have arrows which are hitting low of your neutral point of aim and arrows which are hitting high of your neutral point of aim. And again, at closer distances, say for instance you've got a plus or minus balance of ½ an inch, yeah, that's not going to make that much of a difference. It might make a ½ inch difference at 20 yards. However, at 50 yards that might make an inch or an inch and a half difference. So that could mean the difference between a bull and in the red could make the difference between 10 and 8 points. However, if it's an even greater distance, say for instance it's a plus 1 or 2 inch balance which you haven't picked up on, the difference in point of impact at 50 yards could be 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 inches, especially when the wind gets in hold of it. Now one of the things you'll also see as well on poorly balanced arrows is vertical stringing. If you haven't corrected for balance, as in you've set the balance all in the same place, whether that's neutral, positive, negative or whatever, if you've got a difference in balance points, you will get vertical stringing, with the more positively balanced arrows going low and the more negatively balanced arrows going high, vertical stringing. Now you don't want that really, strictly speaking, because that's going to give you inconsistent groups, and the way to fix that problem is with ballasting. So ballasting, the way it works, neutrally balanced. Now say for instance I pick up my next arrow and it's balanced at the front at this point here, which means all the weight is in the back. If I want to bring the balance point back, I add weight to the back, and that will shift the balance back towards this balance point here. If the balance is here, I add weight to the front, and it literally just pulls the balance point forward. But anyway, so that's ballasting and balancing, and that's about it really. Everything else we've covered. Just little things to bear in mind. As I say, it's a case of if you don't check your spine bias, you'll get horizontal stringing. If you don't check your balance, you'll get vertical stringing. Either way, you want to avoid them. And I mean, okay. So, vertical stringing, horizontal stringing, both to be avoided, both consequences of bad balance or incorrect balance and incorrect spine bias, easily corrected for if you want to go that far. Anyway, hope you found that interesting and not too boring. Stay safe, keep swinging the sticks, and we'll talk again soon. Cheers, guys.